They say parenting is one of the hardest jobs in the world. After all, you're responsible for the physical, mental, and emotional development of a tiny human being. No, not me. So we imagine it's not all Legos, trips to the park, and Findus crispy pancakes. Now, although we don't have all that much parenting experience here at Team TripleJump, and we wouldn't dare dish out any sort of advice on the subject, we can still recognise the parents in video games who really should have had a visit from social services, or at least Super Nanny, long ago. Fair warning, we'll be exploring some plot points from a number of games, so a spoiler warning is in effect. I'm the excellent father figure to young Billy Ray Walrus, Peter from TripleJump, and here are the 10 worst parents in video games. Number 10. Your Mum, Pokemon Red and Blue. No, this isn't just an excuse for us to make a your mum joke in an entry heading. The player character's mother in Pokemon Red and Blue is, in fact, quite irresponsible as parents go. It's easy to miss the neglect in amongst all of the cute creatures and funky 8-bit tunes of the game, but think about it. You, a child of 11, have lofty ambitions of becoming a Pokemon trainer. Rather than encouraging you to stay in school and go to a college that specializes in such things, however, your mum packs your bags and sends you off into the world to just go and do it, alone, as an 11-year-old. It wouldn't be quite so bad if you'd been accompanied by someone, but no, you're just left to wander from town to town, challenging gym leaders to glorified cockfights and getting set upon by whatever Team Rocket nutcase takes a disliking to you on any particular day. We appreciate that some kids do get sent off to boarding schools from a fairly young age, but you know, those things are manned by responsible adults. It's not the fact that mum has sent you off to learn more about the thing you love doing that has us shaking our heads and loudly tutting. It's simply the complete lack of care for your health and well-being. Number 9. Cody and May, It Takes Two. Regardless of the situation, divorce is unpleasant and can have long-lasting impacts on a couple's children, if not handled properly. A great example of how not to deal with it comes from Cody and May, the titular duo of It Takes Two. Their main issue is that the pair are so self-absorbed that they begin neglecting everything and everyone around them, including their daughter Rose. After they tell the young girl that they are divorcing, she tries her best to mend their relationship by play-acting with a pair of handmade dolls that look like her parents. When one of her tears lands on the dolls, the parents are trapped within them and forced to face their issues head-on. The game explores the impacts of divorce on children in a fairly light-hearted way, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that Cody and May are pretty rubbish parents that have indirectly convinced their daughter that she is the root of their marital problems, causing her to run away. Fortunately, the tale does have a happy ending, and the couple is able to find Rose before she gets too far, assuring her that no matter what happens, they love her. No, I'm not crying. Someone's just cutting onions in the office kitchen and I'm really sad about it. Number 8. Kratos, God of War. On the surface of it, you might think that Kratos is actually quite a good dad. After all, in 2018's God of War, he does do a reasonable job of taking care of his young son, Atreus. Sadly, his track record of looking after his daughter, Calliope, isn't quite as outstanding. In 2005's God of War, it's revealed that after she contracts the plague, Calliope is sentenced to death. Not one to take such a thing lying down, Kratos sets out on a quest to find Ambrosia and save the poor girl, eventually acquiring the Fire of Apollo from a mysterious healer and assuring her survival. Don't prepare that Dad of the Year award just yet, however, as despite his best efforts to ensure that Calliope lived, he accidentally ends up killing her and her mother, Lysandra, during a blood frenzy in which he slaughtered a temple full of people with his blades of chaos. Big oops. Of course, the whole thing was set up by the antagonist, Ares, as a way to ensure that Kratos became the ultimate warrior, but Kratos still took the decision to enter the temple against his better judgment and to slay everyone inside. How about next time we think before we act? Eh, big lad? Number 7. Zoe among the sleep. When a marriage breaks down, it can be incredibly hard for the parties involved to cope with the change, and this is especially true where children are in the mix. No one knows this quite as well as David, the young protagonist of the 2014 survival horror game Among the Sleep. Following his parents' separation, David lives with his mother, and it's fair to say that she isn't doing very well with the whole situation. On David's birthday, his father Justin arrives at his party with a present. However, Zoe refuses to allow him to see the boy, yelling at him and forcing him to leave. Throughout the game, we learn that this behavior is completely normal for Zoe, who manifests in David's psyche as a vicious, troll-like monster. He frequently finds his mother drinking alone and crying to herself, and at one point she even lashes out at him as he tries to retrieve his teddy bear. Though it's clear that Zoe is struggling to get to grips with single parenthood and is clearly in need of help, she's still causing a significant amount of trauma to her young son, who ultimately is probably feeling just as lost in this situation as she is. Number 6. William and Annette Birkin. Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's always nice to give your kids a little treat every once in a while, be it a trip to McDonald's, that shiny new toy they've been after, or a fancy pendant filled with a virus that's capable of destroying mankind. Oh, how lovely. We do have to feel incredibly sorry for Sherry Birkin. Not only does she have to contend with the classic "my parents are never around because they work all the time" trope, but there's also the fact that both of them are evil scientists researching deadly viruses for a company that's intent on weaponizing them. We first meet Sherry when we find her hiding in the police station. She tells Claire that she's being pursued by a monstrous creature that we later find out is her own father, William, in a mutated form caused by the G virus. It's later revealed that he's implanted Sherry with an embryo that will cause her to horribly mutate as well. Her mother Annette isn't exactly winning any Parent of the Year awards either, considering she has stood by whilst her husband has undertaken all kinds of atrocities and seems more interested in the G virus than she does her own daughter. Still, the pair get what's coming to them, and by the time we see Sherry again in Resi 6, she's become a fully fledged badass, in spite of her terrible upbringing. Oh, you go, girl! Number 5. Dracula, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Not that we like to judge a book by its cover here at Team TripleJump, but if you're literally dubbed the Prince of Darkness, it's probably unlikely you're going to make much of a father figure. As if to prove us right, Dracula spends the entirety of Castlevania Symphony of the Night trying to murder his son, Alucard. That's Dracula backwards. He might be the Prince of Darkness, but he certainly ain't the Prince of creative kids' names. Following his defeat at the end of Castlevania Rondo of Blood, Dracula disappears, though 4 years later, his castle makes a sudden return, and Richter, the man who saw his demise, goes missing. From there, it's up to Alucard to find Richter and destroy the castle. But upon his arrival, he finds that Richter intends to resurrect Dracula. After his companion urges him not to hurt Richter, sensing he's under another's control, Alucard continues on his quest to dispatch his father. Admittedly, both Alucard and Dracula are trying to kill one another, so you could argue there's wrong on both sides, but it's worth remembering that Dracula is a bloodthirsty vampire that will go on killing if he isn't stopped, so he really is probably the one in the wrong here. Number 4. Vela's parents, Broken Age. When you're a teenager, it can sometimes feel a bit of an uphill struggle trying to forge your own identity whilst your parents have their own ideas about what you should be. They want you to go and do ballet lessons or study harder, whilst you just want to hang out with your friends. Usually, they're just trying to do what they think is best for you. However, in the case of Vela's parents in Broken Age, this couldn't be further from the truth on account of the fact that they want to sacrifice her in order to appease the Lovecraftian nightmares that plague their homeland. That's some great parents there. Far from being distraught over the whole thing though, if anything, they're prideful that their daughter has been chosen to be part of the ritual, as if it's some sort of great honour that Vela gets to die just so these beasties can reappear again in 14 years and demand the exact same thing of other families. Rightly, Vela's not having any of it, and rather than sit around and wait to be slaughtered, she sets out to slay the monster to whom she was due to be sacrificed. You know, like one of the parents should have done bloody ages ago. Number 3. Scott Shelby's dad, Heavy Rain. For many of us, the occasional tipple is a lovely treat after a long week at work, though it's probably fair to say we've all done things we wish we hadn't under the influence. Whether it's texting an ex, getting into a bar fight, or letting our child drown whilst trapped in a pipe, we all have our embarrassing stories. Now, although Scott Shelby himself isn't exactly a model citizen, what with all of the kidnappings, murders of small children, and the torment he inflicts on their fathers, his own dad is quite the piece of work himself. Though we don't see a huge amount of Shelby's childhood throughout Heavy Rain, what we do see paints a picture of a drunken, abusive father who doesn't give two hoots about his kids. During one of his outbursts, he throws Scott and his brother John out into the rain, where the two proceed to play hide and seek. Things quickly go south, however, when John's foot becomes stuck in a large pipe that is slowly filling with rainwater. Unable to free his brother, Scott goes to find his dad, who refuses to help and asserts that John's death would just mean one less greedy mouth to feed, and the boy is left to drown. Jeez, what a charmer. Number 2. The Mother, The Binding of Isaac, Rebirth. Poor Isaac. He's really not been having a very good time of it lately, what with his mum hearing the voice of God and turning on the boy, and that's even before the game actually starts. Based loosely on the Bible story of the same name, The Binding of Isaac tells the tale of the eponymous wee lad and his mother. Whilst she watches Christian broadcasts, Isaac happily draws and plays with his toys, the pair keeping to themselves. Their simple but contented life soon changes, however, when Isaac's mother begins hearing a voice that she greets as the Lord. It initially tells her to remove all that is evil from Isaac in order to save him from sin, and she does so by taking away his drawings, toys, and even his clothes. It then asks her to cut him off from the evil in the world, so she obliges by locking Isaac in his bedroom. Finally, it demands she sacrifice the boy in order to prove her devotion. So she takes a butcher's knife from the kitchen and goes after Isaac, forcing him to flee into the basement. See, this is what happens when you spend too much time alone with someone. 1 minute you're happily watching songs of praise, and the next you're waist deep in ritual sacrifice. Happens at the office literally every Thursday, and it's getting inconvenient, to be honest. And number 1, Harlan Wade, Fear. We've seen our fair share of crappy parents on this list, but none of them are a patch on Harlan Wade, father of Fear antagonist Alma. Upon discovering his daughter possesses psychic abilities, Harlan does what any sane and rational parent would do. He signs her up for a whole bunch of experimentation. Haha, brilliant. Throughout her childhood, Alma is subjected to various tests by scientists, including her own dad, that wish to harness her powers. These varied from simple tasks that would reveal her abilities to, well, frankly, torturous abuse. When it becomes clear that she poses a potential threat, Harlan and his colleagues found Project Origin, which aims to spawn a prototype fetus that will one day be able to become a telepathic commander in psychic warfare. As someone rightly points out, it's very much not okay to implant an embryo in a 7-year-old, although it's also not okay to implant an embryo in anyone at all if it's against their will, but I digress. And Alma is put into a coma until such a time that she's old enough to carry the baby. So congratulations, Harlan Wade. Your utter abhorrence has won you the TripleJump and Billy Ray Walrus Award for awful parenting. You absolute scumbag.